We thank you for this, dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this meeting today. We thank you for the information that we are about to receive. Thank you for a great reveal in our partnership with the Wesley Community Center and all celebrations that are taking place over this summer and for the new coming year, especially for our scholarship students. Thank you for your grace and your mercy. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Miss Tina. I appreciate that so much. We don't have an agenda this morning. We kind of were busy and didn't get that sent out. So does anybody have anything before we let Miss Shelly begin her presentation? No? Okay. Well, then I am going to ask Miss Katie Parrish, who is our historian, to please welcome Shelly Bohannon.
Is anyone able to hear Katie?
I can't.
Okay.
Are you having a problem hearing Katie?
Yes.
Okay.
So am I can't hear her.
Oh, okay. Okay, she's going to hand me her computer and I'll just read it because you guys can hear me okay, correct? Okay. Shelly Bohannon is the executive director and started with the Bridge in 2001. She graduated from West Texas A&M University with a Bachelor of Science in Psychology and Amarillo College with an associate degree with the emphasis in drug and alcohol counseling. Prior to being employed with the Bridge, she conducted investigations at the Bridge as a forensic interviewer of children ages 2 through 17 and interviewed children for 17 years. She has interviewed over 6,000 children in her tenure at the Bridge. She facilitated the case review program in Potter and Randall counties for 9 years and was instrumental in developing and facilitating multidisciplinary case supervising, the forensic interview program, family advocacy program, the internship and volunteer programs, and the multidisciplinary team coordination. She has received over 1,000 hours of training on child abuse and interviewing children and has been involved as a trainer of community education programs on the topic of child abuse. Shelly was a member of the Children's Advocacy Centers of Texas, training faculty, conducting training to advisory board and the Criminal Justice Advisory Committee. We are pleased to introduce Ms. Shelly Bohannon. Hi, Shelly. Thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Mary. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I am going to try to share my screen.
Do you want me to try to screen share? I don't know if I can do it. I've got it up. I can screen share it and see if it works.
Oh, okay. Miss Tina, go ahead.
Look.
And if not, I can do it.
Okay, hang on just a second. I might be able to.
There you go. You did it.
I did it, yeah. Okay.
This is the great thing about Zoom is it teaches you new skills.
Yeah, just when you think you've got it all mastered. Okay, are y'all seeing everything okay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So first I just want to say that the background that I have behind me, I was just going to have my office, but I'm headed to the beach next week. So I just wanted you guys to all share in the beach experience with me. I think it's important that we all do some self-care there.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So I'm just going to kind of start off I don't know who all has been to our office or knows much about us. So I'm going to start at the bottom level, and hopefully I won't be repeating too much information that everyone already has. So this first slide, basically, I just want you guys to see what our building looks like. We purposely built this building back in 2001 so that it would be child friendly and feel like a home when children come to us. So that's really what the purpose of our building really is making children comfortable and their families comfortable, because we're seeing them at the most critical time probably for them and the most stressful time. So really having it where they can just relax is really important. So the bridge actually was established back in 1987, and people, what was happening was they were seeing children going through this process. Once a report was made to law enforcement or Children's Protective Services, that the child was just being passed around. When a child made an outcry, they typically would tell someone at school or a family member, whoever that may be, and they would tell this person, that person would interview them. What happened? Who did that? When was the last time? And, and no one really has those skills to interview children in a neutral way and not offering information as much as we want to help kids. And so that child was being passed from the school counselor to the school principal. And, when we're sent to the principal, I don't know how you guys felt, but when I was sent to the principal's office, I thought I was in trouble for something. And so here we had child victims who were making that outcry, and we were sending them down to the principal's office. And now they're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble for what this person did to me. So what was happening was then that child, as they went through the process, began minimizing what happened to them or recanting the information. So the professionals working the cases decided there had to be a better way to really help children and families through this criminal justice system. And so they found a program out in Huntsville, Alabama, and they went out there and found this program where they were really truly working these investigations in a multidisciplinary fashion, so that the professionals were sharing the information and not passing that child around. And so it came down to how do we support this child and help them not have to relive this trauma over and over again with multiple different professionals. So the bridge was established, and here we are so many years later, hopefully making things better for children as they go through this process. But that's how we got started. It came out of the need of finding a better way to protect the children involved in these investigations. So our center, actually, we provide services to the top 26 counties of the Panhandle. So I do believe we still have the largest geographic service area in the nation. I've gone out and, they always ask, what is your service area? How many counties do you serve? And so I always am shocked when I tell people we serve 26 counties in the Texas Panhandle. They're like, what? And I don't tell them that, like down in Briscoe County or some of those counties, there's more cattle than there are people. I'd leave that piece out and just let them think we have all of these people in so many counties. But we do provide services to the top 26 counties. And back in about 2007, we really identified that we needed to have satellite offices closer to children in some of these outlying communities. So we now have a satellite office in Pampa, in Hereford, Clarendon, and in Dumas. And so this allows our forensic interviewers to go out to that community, conduct those forensic interviews in the child's community, keeping them closer to their school and closer to their family. And we assist in getting them connected with resources within their own community. Some communities don't have the full array of services, so they will have to come to Amarillo, but we make every effort to make sure that those services are received there where they live. Because a lot of our students are already missing a lot of school, and so we want to keep them there where they're not missing quite so much for this. This quote by Dr. Seuss is one that we love, because so many people think that children, because they're little, that they don't know what's going on or they're not aware of their surroundings, and they really are. So we've adopted a person, no matter how small, because even our littlest children are able to provide us information to assist with investigations. Um, our service, our age range for services runs from birth to 17. And we say birth because, yes, children are not verbal yet, obviously. However, we do see children just basically right after birth who have been victims of sexual assault or victims of physical abuse. And so we are able to provide a space to even those little bitty kids for a sexual assault exam if needed. And we do. And that's the hard part, is to see someone walk in with, a brand new baby, and they're coming in for a sexual abuse offense, and this child has been sexually abused by someone that's had contact with them. So we do provide that service for those littles. And then once children start becoming verbal at the age of 2, we will start doing an assessment for them to see what their verbal skills are and are they capable of conducting and participating in a forensic interview. There's a certain format, so they've got to be able to complete some tasks. They need to be able to speak first and foremost, but can they speak in sentences? Do they understand who the people are that live in their household? Do they know how old they are? Do they know their own name? So many children don't even have those skills yet. And so if they can't identify other people, it's hard for us to conduct a forensic interview with them, but we always do that assessment. Usually we start seeing kids at about 3 really be pretty confident and be able to do that. So we do provide that sexual assault exam service also all the way up in for children till they turn 18. So forensic interviews and sexual assault exams up until their 18th birthday. One population that I didn't put on here, and not many people know that we do this, but we provide these same services to adults that function between the ages of 2 and 17. So if they're sexually assaulted and they function within this age range, we can also provide this full array of services for those individuals as well. So that's a very small piece of what we do, but it is something that we can offer. Primarily, we see children coming to us from a sexual abuse or physical abuse event. Primarily, it's usually the victims, but we also see children who may be a witness to those crimes and offenses. They can provide that additional information sometimes that the victims aren't able to provide because they're in stress and trauma. So they're not identifying a lot of those peripheral details, and other children can do that for us. We also interview victim or witnesses to domestic violence. So when parents are involved in a domestic violence situation, or there's any kind of intimate partner kind of violence, the children sometimes are present or know what the history looks like. So we want to know what's going on. And typically we see those cases when there has been serious bodily injury or a weapon has been used, something that will rise that case to a felony level. But there are times when we see a lower offense level case come through as well because of the history that may be involved with the family. We also see children when they are the witness to a homicide or in the home where someone has been killed or a child has died. Those children, a lot of times those come to us in the middle of the night. We are on call 24/7. So when there's a critical event that happens, we do respond and we come in and take care of business whenever they need us. If they're trying to collect evidence or they need to know who the suspect is, we will bring those children in and interview them and find out what that child knows, and be able to help intervene for their safety as well. And really, anytime that there's a felony crime and a child's involved in any way, we will interview them just to know what information they may have and also be able to offer services and intervene for their safety. So here's what the inside of our building looks like. It actually looks a little bit different. We just painted the entire inside of our building with the help of United Way and the Day of Caring, and then Randall County Sheriff's Office. And it's a wonderful color. It's no longer green and yellow. So we're so excited. We've come into this century. So that's kind of a beautiful thing. But this is still basically what it looks like. Again, going for that home environment, helping children be comfortable. And so when children need to come and see us, parents do not make that referral to us. That comes to us from our investigating agencies, our police, our sheriff, It could come from Children's Protective Services. So that report has to be made to ensure that a neutral investigation is conducted. And so those investigating agencies contact us and we schedule a time for that interview, and the investigators are here for that. And then the non-offending parent gets to come in and be a part of that. So if the perpetrator is someone living in the home, a parent, they are not to come to our building. This is a safe place for children. And so those perpetrators are identified, and we ensure that the child is coming into a safe environment so that they don't feel threatened or scared. So that's how kiddos get to us. A lot of times we take phone calls from families or parents, and they just don't know what to do. And so we will step them through that process and connect them with the appropriate investigating agencies. So hopefully they don't get the runaround or passed around, and help them be able to make the appropriate report. And if you guys have any questions at any point, I think you guys can throw it in the chat. I don't know if I can see it, but throw it in the chat and we'll make sure everything gets done. Eventually I will find the chat box again. Okay, so our primary service is forensic interviews. And so the picture on the left is the interview room. Again, we're going for that home feel. Children are allowed to draw while they're talking, because a lot of times children can draw and that helps them with their free recall. If any of you guys are parents, you know that kids just start talking and they do this and they're going while they're talking, and they're playing and they're coloring, and so many things come out. Or if you're driving in the car, they're going to be talking and you're going to feel like you circled the block 10,000 times because your child is talking and telling you something important and you don't want to break the bubble of this conversation. So same kind of thing happening in our forensic interview rooms. It's our forensic interviews are not play therapy, but they're also not an interrogation like what you might see happen at a police station or a sheriff's office with suspects. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a fact-finding interview. We do have a process that we follow, and there are certain things within that interview that have to be done by law before the child tells us their story. So we always do a developmental assessment with the child. We talk to them about things that they like to do, and we talk to them about family. That's why it's so important that they know the people around them. And we talk to them about what it means to tell the truth and what it means to tell a lie. And then we have them go through an oath, similar to like they would if they were in court. And those are pieces that are required to us by the Code of Criminal Procedures to ensure that the child understands what they're doing and they're providing that oath. The video recording does not replace a child in court, but it can supplement that child's testimony should certain things happen within the trial. And if the child ever becomes unavailable, then the video can replace the child's testimony in court. So for instance, we've had a couple of instances where the child has passed away prior to this case going to court. And so the video was able to come in as that child's testimony because that child obviously is no longer available to come into that court setting and tell their story. So the video can do that. So we place the child under oath just as they would in court. Then the photo on the right, that's what it looks like in our monitoring room. And that's where the investigators sit and they observe this interview happen live. So they can hear what the child is saying, they see what the child's demeanor is, and they're able to start making investigative decisions within that room while the interview's happening so that they can decide, okay, there's other children involved, we need to go find those children and have them interviewed, or who's going to interview the suspect, what other evidence do we need, what search warrants. So all of those decisions are being made in that room real time while we are interviewing the children. It just helps expedite the investigation and keeps everybody on the same page. And so CPS and law enforcement can have a dual investigation, a collaborative investigation, and it starts right at the beginning. So I talked earlier about forensic medical exams, and those are, like I said, done here at our office. And this is the sexual assault exam room. We have contracted with the nurses with Northwest Texas Hospital, and so they're able to come over and conduct these exams. And we are trying to get every child exam done here at the bridge. It keeps the families and the children out of the hospitals where so many illnesses are, especially during COVID. It was especially important to be able to bring families here, and we didn't have an interruption in that service. So all of the exams are being done here whenever possible. The only ones that still go to the hospital is if there's significant trauma that needs further medical physician or possible admittance into the hospital. So those are done. They're done here, and everything that has to happen can happen here. We can do a blood draw here. We do pregnancy tests here if necessary. So it can all be done in one stop. So they get all of their services done while they're here. So we also do community outreach. And so similar to what I'm doing here with you guys today, we have staff that go out and talk to groups, and we talk to civic groups, schools, to daycares, anybody that needs this information or wants this information, we will come and talk to them. And our outreach is free. Everything we do is free to the families. They never have to pay for our services. We have developed also an online training for school personnel. And so AISD is using that. And so every AISD staff member is required to take this training, because they're required to have training in child abuse. So this meets that requirement for them. We also are able to offer them the TEA credits that they need. So again, we're trying to have a full array of services. So not only for our victims and their families, but also for our community. So we are able to speak to the human trafficking component that our school personnel need. So all of that is in that training. So it's available to any school district that needs it or wants it. We encourage them to do that. It has local information. It has ways to be able to reach us. So it's a local resource, but still giving them the requirements that they need to meet their training expectations. Okay, so this is an important slide for me. This is what we have done. And so these are some pretty important numbers, and I've put up here our 2020 numbers and year-to-date 2021. So in 2020, at the end of 2020, these were our numbers. We conducted 1,109 forensic interviews in 2020, which was an 8% increase over 2019. So in 2020, 23% of the children we interviewed came from the Hispanic community. Moving over to year-to-date 2021 for the forensic interviews, we've already conducted 868 forensic interviews. 50% of those 868 are coming from the Hispanic community. So I don't know if this is an increase in the education. I'm not really sure what the cause of this increase is, but I'm glad to see it, that if we've got victims in this community, we are reaching them some way. So that's a good thing that we're reaching them. It's a bad thing that there's that many. So it's really a double-edged sword on that. Our forensic medical exams, in 2020, we did 231 exams on children, which was a 20% increase over 2019. Year to date, we are at 182 forensic medical exams. So we are going to surpass this 231 this year. I did not pull these last two numbers for year to date, but last year we came in on call, or we performed 398 hours of on call. And that means that we stayed after hours, came in the middle of the night, on the weekends or whatever. So that number is a 77% increase over 2019. I'm going to estimate that this number will increase for 2021 from what I'm seeing. In 2020, our number of families receiving referrals is 1,849 family members, which is a 59% increase over 2019. So this was what we were afraid of 2020 as we started coming out of COVID and those isolated lockdowns. What we had done is we isolated our victims and our suspects for the most part in the same household. So we're also seeing the increase in domestic violence reports. When you lock your victim and your suspect in the same household without resources to make an outcry or receive help, this is what we're seeing. And we're anticipating that these numbers will stay elevated for a number of years because we know that children and victims don't make their outcry immediately. There's a time frame built in there that they are going to wait to make that outcry. They are going to wait till they're safe. Some of our victims are still isolated with their perpetrators. So we are anticipating this increase to go up. Just our projection out, we're anticipating to have approximately 1,400 children interviewed this year. That's a significant increase even over 2020, and that will be an all-time high for the history of our agency. So it's pretty significant. Looking down at our outreach provided in 2020, the adults that we reached is 4,827, which is a 16% decrease. And the number of children was a huge decrease. We only were able to reach 471 children in 2020, which is an 83% decrease. That's very significant. And that is 100% related to the COVID epidemic, because when everything shut down, obviously everything shut down. And so we weren't able to get into the schools and see children. We weren't able to get into those programs that typically let us in. And so that's significantly down. And as you see to the right, our numbers for this year for children, we've already almost doubled what we did last year. So we are well on our way. And our outreach coordinator, Jackie McKeska, who's actually on this call, she's already getting into schools with our Play It Safe program. So that number is going to come up, as well as our adults. Once school starts back up, we're going to see this number start to really increase. So we're optimistic that 2020, people thought we would be down in numbers, but in reality, we saw increases across the board. All right, so what does child abuse do for kids? It really does harm kids, sometimes for life. They have problems with relationships. They have trust issues. For those who were their perpetrator, who wasn't their perpetrator, they may not trust their siblings because they may feel like their siblings knew what happened and didn't protect them. They aren't going to trust their mom. If their mom was there, they think that moms, us moms, we know everything, right? We think we do, our kids think we do. So for kids, when they think that their mom or their parent knew what was happening but didn't stop it, that is detrimental to that relationship with the parents. And then as children start becoming older and they start having relationships with boyfriends or girlfriends, they don't understand what that relationship is supposed to look like, because everything that they've experienced has been toxic, or it has been inappropriate or whatever. So they don't understand how to function within a normal dating relationship. And then as they get married, it just is cyclical. That whole issue of being able to relate with others is carried over into every area of their life. Behaviors that we start seeing with kids, it runs from one end of the spectrum to the other. Some kids turn to being promiscuous because that's how they see the way to get attention or feel love. Or they may completely withdraw and they don't have any relationships. They may start wearing hoodies in the summer and they just really start covering up. We are seeing right now, a trend we are seeing that is super concerning for the professionals is we are seeing a lot of children cutting. They are cutting and cutting and cutting, and we are doing a lot of referrals to the pavilion for suicide ideations and plans. And this is all wrapped up into each other. It's the sexual abuse, the physical abuse, the kids are cutting, they're making plans. It's becoming a mental health crisis that we're seeing for children coming out of these events. The emotional toll that it takes on children, some of them, they just completely withdraw. We have kids who withdraw so much that they become mute. We have some that are so angry that they are breaking things, they're tearing up things, they're beating up their siblings, they're having issues at school. They may have jealousy issues. We have siblings who become jealous of the other sibling because they perceive what they're seeing is this other child receiving all of this attention, whereas the child receiving the attention is the victim of a sexual abuse event. So there's jealousy between siblings, there's shame coming in the family. So there's so many pieces that this event touches that without intervention, we're unable to really address that. When children come to us and see us, we will hook them in. Like I said earlier, we're going to hook them in with some kind of resources. First and foremost, we're going to provide them a counseling referral. Who can they go to help sort this out and find what's normal for their family? Because that's going to be really critical for us to be able to move children from this crisis situation to normal. Normal is not going to be the same. So they've got to redefine what normal is for them as the child victim or the family. So it impacts everyone. So that leads us into what can the community do to help? We need the community to know how to recognize what's happening with children, how to recognize it, how to respond to it, because that's really important as well. Because if someone responds with a negative emotion or in a negative way, a lot of times what we see is children shutting down and they're like, okay, this is not an okay thing for us to talk about. So we want to educate and train people. How do you respond when a child says, hey, someone has been touching me on my private and I don't know what to do, or someone has hit me, look at the bruises on my body. These children are crying out for help. We as a community have to know how to respond to help them. And we don't want to shut them down. So scheduling some kind of community education, let us come and talk to your group, whatever that is. And we can go in depth on how to recognize, respond, and then how to report. That's always the question that we get is, who do I report to? What do I need to report? And what does that look like after I make a report? So we step groups and school people, school personnel, counselors, daycare worker, everybody we want to talk to say, this is how you respond and this is what to look for. And so by making those reports, it allows for the professionals to step in and intervene for the safety of that child, whether it's a sexual abuse offense, whether it's a physical abuse offense, whatever that is, we want to be able to step in and intervene. And it allows us to start offering those services and connect this family with people within the community that can help them, because we are not the professionals in all things, but we can certainly find professionals in all things for families. Whether that is in housing, is that in daycare, is that in someone they need a translator? What is it that this family needs? We're going to try to identify those needs and connect them with someone who can help them with that. So by getting that report made, then we're able to do that. And a lot of people say, we don't want to make the report because we can help. We don't want, this is a good family. We don't want to tarnish this family. We understand that. However, no one is the professional in all areas, and it takes all of us to be able to do that. And someone should be held accountable if they are hurting a child. And so that is law enforcement and CPS's job to be able to do that. And it takes every one of us to step in and do our part, whatever our part is. So scheduling those programs, let us talk to people so that they know how to help us intervene for the sake of children. For some people, they don't have time to volunteer. We get phone calls all the time that say, I work the same hours you're open, but I want to help. What can I do? And this is what we tell them: schedule, help us get out into the community. Maybe for some people, it's donating. That's where they feel like the best way to help is, because that allows us to offer more services. Like I said earlier, nothing we do is charged to the family. We help pay for counseling if they don't have the resources to do that. So there's so many areas that donations, monetary donations can help us, but also even stuffed animals or adult coloring books or whatever that is, because every child that comes into our office, excuse me, whether we interview them or if they're just a sibling that comes along, every one of those children take home a comfort item so that when they leave here, they have something to comfort them when they leave. Sometimes it's a stuffed animal, sometimes it's a blanket. Sometimes for teenagers, they like those adult coloring books and colored pencils. That is a healing process for them. So we want to make sure that we're helping find that comfort for that child when they leave. And help us too just by sharing social media posts. Again, that's another way to start getting our message out. We reach more people because you never know, if you share something, you're going to share it with a friend who's going to share it with a friend who's going to share it with a friend. And that may be the person who needs that information more than anybody. You just don't know who that's going to reach. And that's the great thing about social media. And then that's also the downside of social media. You never know who it's going to reach and whatnot. So sharing our social media is definitely helpful, and it helps us get our message out, both the good and the bad, because we celebrate a lot of good stuff on our social media as well. Let's see. All right, so that's all. That's the down and dirty that I have. That's it for this training. This is my contact information. I do respond by email if you need us. You can always call our office there at that number on the screen, and someone will be able to answer your questions, direct you in the right direction. Whatever you may need, we will do our best to get you the information that you need.
Thank you, Shelly. That was, my gosh, so informative. Oh, I don't know what happened there.
Okay,
Does anybody
go.
have any questions for Shelly? I know there's a couple in the chat section, but does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask her outright?
I wanted to know, how are you all funded? Maybe, did you cover that or not?
I really didn't. So we have a state a state grant coming through the HHSC Commission. We do receive a grant, a federal grant, the Victims of Crime Act grant. And then after that, most of our funding is private donations. And we have some money coming in from some local trusts and grants, but a lot of it is really just, it's the community helping us out. Anything and everything is really where our funding is coming from. Okay. We also have a fundraiser every year. Can't forget our fundraiser. It's Heroes and Legends. And we do that usually February and March. So it really depends on the schedule of our speaker. But we do one large fundraiser. We also have some third-party fundraisers that help us along as well. Get Fit, Karen Roberts. That woman's amazing, and she does a lot of runs and marathons and donates back to us.
And my last question would be, I understand with HIPAA and privacy, of course, and just the sensitivity of these interviews and such. Do you all ever have social work interns or even high school student interns through the PRO program, for training?
That's a great question. We do not utilize high school interns. And the reason we don't have high school interns come in is they are still within our service range. And so they could potentially be a victim that would come in needing our services, or they might be going to school with someone. So to ensure for confidentiality and privacy, we do not bring in high school interns or volunteers. We do have social work interns from WT every semester. And we've taken some interns from other schools. Sam Houston State is one that has interns coming to us. And those are usually students that have gone to school down there. They've come back home, and now they're needing to do their internship. And so we're able to work with those other universities to meet the requirements of their internship program. But we typically, our interns come from the West Texas A&M social work program.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, I have a question, Shelly. First of all, thanks for coming.
Absolutely.
I was going to ask, so foot on the ground volunteers, what can you use? Where can we help? I worked at a residential treatment center for many years with emotionally disturbed and sexual abuse kids. Where can you use volunteers like feet on the ground to help you guys program?
So that's a great question. And we've actually been growing our volunteer program because we focus so much on our student interns that we focused on that for a very long time because we really want to grow them in the direct service area. But Jackie McKeska, who is on this call, also is working on growing our volunteer program. And those volunteers, what they're doing right now is we have volunteers that are making follow-up calls to families, checking in with them, seeing if there's needs that they need. Just check-up calls with they're doing that. We've got some that are helping us up front because we're seeing more families coming in while we're still limiting the number of adults that come in with children. Like yesterday, we literally had 3 or 4 families here at the same time. So we were putting them in different places. So volunteers help us be able to sit with the family, talk with the family. Sometimes they just need someone to sit and just be with them. They don't want to be entertained or whatever. So we have volunteers doing that. We have a volunteer, God bless her soul. She is sorting through all the donations that we get, make sure that they're clean. So we have a number of different things that our volunteers do help with. What we try to do is we always have an interview with the potential volunteer and ask them what interests them, and how do we plug them in so that we're fulfilling their need as a volunteer to be helpful. Because if you don't like answering phones and I put you on the phone, you are not going to stay with me as a volunteer. So I really want to match the volunteering task. So we're getting pretty creative, actually, Jerry, trying to get people in to be able to let them help us.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And one more question.
Yeah.
In today's environment, have you seen a big surge in like older kids, especially the young ladies? Do they feel a little more empowered with a lot of, it's a lot of different environment now, kids? I mean, people are coming out like famous people and people they may look up to as idols and like as people that are mentors. Has that helped you in having women, the young ladies, speak out and feel empowered to tell people?
I haven't heard that. We're still seeing the same kind of trend with children talking about, because we always ask them what kept you from talking, what's keeping you from talking, what are the facts, and what caused you to talk now? What caused you to tell your story? And most of the girls are still telling us, I'm tired of it happening. I think he's doing it now to my little sister. So the same reasons that children were telling us previously, why they're telling, are very similar to now. So I'm not really seeing so much of, the famous people or whatever. It's really comes down to a personal decision of when they decide to tell. Okay, I see a question, and I'm going to hit some of these questions in the chat box. How many other school districts in Region 16 go through the training that AISD goes through? Right now, we just have a handful, not very many. Jackie has been reaching out to them to hopefully get them on board to utilize this training. It's hard to get into school systems and for them to let us offer this training. I don't know if it's, I don't know why. I don't know if they're scared of what we're going to tell them. Is it a matter of making it a priority? So I don't know. I don't know what the basis is, but Jackie's been beating on their doors, hopefully getting us to come in. She's also been talking to them about our Play It Safe program for children. It's a curriculum for each grade level. So it would be a great thing to start with those kids in kindergarten. And then as they transition to first grade, they get another curriculum and then another one in second grade and third grade and so on. So we're really trying to get the Play It Safe program in there for the children, then also get the staff to have this training so that they can know how to respond when the children are making the outcry as a result of the program we're doing with the children. So Mary, I'm hoping we're getting into more schools this year. That's our hope. We're crossing our fingers. So, okay, question, any studies on increase in the Hispanic community? Not that I've seen. I haven't seen any studies that are specific to that community or any other than it's just right now things are increasing based on coming out of COVID. There's historically, our Hispanic community numbers have been lower. And in talking with those families, what we hear from them is we're going to handle this in-house. We don't need the police. I'm not going to do that. Somebody hurt my kid and I'm handling it. And so I'm excited to see that that's not so much the case as it has been, and that they're reaching out for help and keeping, the parents. always tell them, if you're handling this in your house, what happens if you assault someone and then you're arrested? Now you've just taken that safe person from your child, and that's who they need. And so we really talk to parents about, we get it. We know if it's our child, we are going to be we are going to want to handle it. But we try to talk to people about, let us handle it. You be that support person for your child. Let us do all the other pieces. So yeah, I don't know, Jerry, I haven't seen that. Hopefully something will be coming out. And I don't know if this is just a regional trend that number is going up, or if that's going to be statewide, or what that's going to look like. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out research wise, for sure.
So Shelly, do you have bilingual staff in I guess I would assume people that speak Spanish and maybe other languages?
We have 2 staff persons that can speak Spanish with us. I actually was just hiring for a forensic interview, and I was really hoping that I would get someone who was Spanish speaking, and I didn't have anybody apply that was. We actually only had about 3 or 4 people actually apply, period. So I think we are experiencing that shortage for those who are applying for positions. So it was very disheartening. But I think we've got a great person, and I've got 2 staff that can sit in and translate for us. So that's really exciting for us. Let's see. Here's a question. Mentioned referrals to the pavilion. How effective is the therapy that is received there? So the therapy that they receive there, I think really what we're seeing from children that we're sending over is crisis intervention more. They have the child in for 2 to 3 days. They stabilize the child in whatever manner that they need, whether it's a medication issue or whatever that is. And then the child is then transferred into an outpatient basis. And that's where the child really starts gaining those coping skills and ways to manage the stress and anxiety that they may be having. So I think it's really the best therapy is coming once they're transitioned into that outpatient program, or they are then transferred to another counselor within our community. So it's that ongoing relational therapy that I think is the most beneficial, but the pavilion is definitely an option for stabilizing the child. And as far as other options, there are not. If we have someone who is in crisis like that, the pavilion is where we have to send them. And so, but we just had to refer a child there 2 weekends ago or 3 weekends ago, and they were just about full. So I think that's just indicative of the overall mental health crisis that we are seeing coming out of this lockdown. And not all of that is necessarily related to the sexual abuse or physical abuse offense. It is just they're having mental health issues related to isolation and all those things that came along with that. Let's see. Did I get everybody's questions answered in the chat? I'm not seeing anything else.
So go ahead. Oh, that's me. I'm hearing feedback. So I just wonder, since we have a few minutes, Shelly, like, can you give us like the top 3 things like that we can recognize quickly if we're around kids? Maybe something that we can recognize, oh, there might be a problem, or something that we can look for.
Sure. So so obviously I'm just going to hit the physical abuse side first. It's a little bit easier than the sexual abuse side. So physical abuse, obviously, if you see children with injuries that are not indicative of play, then that is definitely something that should be reported. Kids get bruises on their shins, they get them on their arms. Some kids get them on their forehead because some kids are just head heavy. They bump into everything. But typically kids don't get bruises on their face. They don't have bruises on their abdomen or their backs. And so we may see kids at the swimming pool with these types of injuries, or injuries that are like you can see what the shape is. If If it looks like a loop, that's probably being hit with an extension cord or something like that. Or if it looks like a wooden spoon or like a fly swatter, something like that. Those are obvious type of injuries. Kids do not injure their ears. If you see children with injuries to their ears, that is almost always going to be a physical abuse injury. So that would be something that you would want to report. Most children that we come into contact with, we are not close enough or intimate enough with that child to look at their ears unless they're little buzz-headed boys or something like that, so we typically don't see their ears, but those are just signs that we would be looking for. On the sexual abuse side, it might be children who have reverted, and now that they were potty trained, now they're not. That is an indicator of some kind of trauma. Is it 100% indicative of a sexual abuse event? No, it's not. It could be that there's stress in the family. There could be a divorce. There could be a blending of family. So some of these are going to be a trauma-related symptom. But if all things hold normal and nothing else is changing, that would be a concern for us if we are reverting back to wetting in the pants or whatever. Sometimes it can be children who are fearful of a person. We all see children when they go to school or they go to daycare, they have separation anxiety, and as parents, that stresses us completely out, right? We're just like, oh my gosh, I can't leave my kid. But if they're going there just fine, and then all of a sudden they don't like going to Miss Susie's class, how come? What's going on there that we need to start questioning? That's important. If you have children, older kids who stop showering, they typically or have good hygiene. They shower, they do their makeup, or they shave, or whatever is normal for this child. Then all of a sudden they stop doing that, or they start wearing clothing that they can hide themselves. Or I've had kids that I've interviewed that there's no other way to say it, but other than they just make themselves unattractive. They ugly themselves up or whatever because they don't want to be attractive to this person. And so they feel like if I stink, or if I don't do my makeup, or if I don't do my hair, or if I don't wear cute clothes, then this person will leave me alone. But that's not always happening. So I interviewed twins one time. They're identical twins, and they were both sexually assaulted in the same manner by the same suspect, sometimes in the same room at the same time. I had one twin who moved out of the household, went to live with relatives. She stopped bathing, stopped washing her hair, stopped doing all the things. She came in a hoodie, her face was covered. She wouldn't speak. She was just depressed. She was suicidal. Her twin was still in the home, going to school. She was a cheerleader. She was still doing all the things. So they were polar opposites in their response to the trauma. So it was hard to say that this automatically means sexual abuse, or this automatically means whatever. So, it's knowing the child and knowing what's normal for that child sometimes is the best way to identify issues. But those are some things that you could be looking for. And someone who's not sexually acting out, and we have children who are sexually acting out, that could be a big indicator. If you have a child who is inserting objects into their body, talking about sex, talking about someone's daddy's my boyfriend, or mommy's my girlfriend, or in a very promiscuous way. Kids say that all the time. So-and-so's my girlfriend, or so-and-so. Okay, that could be kid stuff. But if you've got other sexualized behaviors that go along with that, then you've got some concerning behaviors. There's also a comment in here about training for generational trauma. I don't know of any. I don't know. That's a great question. I'm not sure who asked that, but that's a fantastic question. And I don't know of any training to address either one of those. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you suspect something, you haven't actually been told, or maybe there's been hints of potential abuse. If you make a report, how likely is it to get to you guys for an interview? I mean, do they first have to go through CPS for confirmation, or how does that work?
That's a great question. So I'm just going to kind of back that up just a little bit. So if a report is made and the offender is a household member or a family member, those would go to DFPS, so Children's Protective Services. And when it's made to DFPS, a companion report is always sent to the law enforcement agency who has jurisdiction over that offense. So if it's in Amarillo, it's going to go to Amarillo Police Department. If it's a sexual abuse offense, those most typically are going to come to us. Our local protocols and the laws are changing. And so if it's a sexual abuse offense allegation, it is supposed to come to us for an interview and a forensic medical exam. So we're still in transition and getting everybody on board with the protocol. But right now that is what is supposed to happen. If it's a victim of sexual abuse, it is supposed to come to us. Now, if it's an allegation of physical abuse, then Children's Protective Services are likely to go out and put eyes on this child to see what the reporter is seeing. Because sometimes it may be a teeny tiny little bruise, but it's reported that it's, baseball size, and so sometimes the report becomes exaggerated. So they will go out and make contact with the child and see what the injury looks like or whatever, and then involve law enforcement at that point, take some photographs so that the injuries can be documented. But pretty much every sexual abuse case should be coming to our office at this point.
Well, Shelly,
Thank
thank you so much for
Welcome.
all of this information. Was there another question? I didn't mean to cut you off. Okay. Well, Mary had to step out. One of our scholarship recipients gave her a call, and she wanted to make sure to take that call.
Sure.
But again, Shelly, thank you so much for providing us with this information today, because it's definitely a tough subject for a lot of us to hear, but it's important for all of us to know these types of things and to know what to look for and know how to help when we do come across that kind of a scenario. So again, we really appreciate you being here today, because it is so important. But
Thanks for having me. I love coming to talk. So if y'all ever need us, just holler at us.
yeah, thank you very much. And anytime, you're welcome. You're welcome every single month if you'd like to come. In fact, our next meeting is August 27th. 22nd. Our next meeting is August 22nd. And anyone who's joining today, we'd love for you to join again as well. So with that, I guess we will close the meeting. So thank you all for attending today. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.